I've played the role of a sickly weakling for 12 years. Last night, I shattered a 1,000-year-old white jade step with a single punch. But today, just for the very last bowl of the first batch mutton noodles, I ended up in a fierce standoff with a noble young master of the immortal city. He tossed down a gold ingot to snatch the noodles, so I slammed 2 ingots onto the table.
A young lady should show some decorum.
I pretended to slip, struck his funny bone, grabbed the noodles, and bolted. I didn't have time to waste on him. My fiancé, who has designs on the Shen family's soul-calming manual, is currently bringing a green tea hypocrite to dismantle my courtyard's protective array. Tonight, they intend to extract my spiritual bone alive. But I never could have expected that the noble young master I had so thoroughly set up would, at the exact moment I was preparing to overturn the entire place, descend like a god with a divine weapon. Xie Lanfeng rode in on the wind.
Bullying my person.
Did you get my permission? If the neighbors saw this, their jaws would surely drop to the floor. A 1,000-year-old white jade step was shattered to pieces by my single punch. The night is dead silent, making it the perfect time to practice my cultivation. Pretending to be a sickly weakling with no cultivation day after day is honestly driving me insane. If my mother didn't watch me constantly, who would want to put on this ridiculous act? Tomorrow, once I snag that first bowl of the signature mutton noodles from the noodle shop, then I'll truly feel at ease. My maid, Xiao Tao, let out a heavy sigh.
Please keep your voice down. If the madam hears you, she'll punish you by making you copy the rules for female cultivators again. And as for your punch, if you keep striking like that, all the precious jade steps in the backyard will be completely destroyed by you.
Just as I was about to talk back, my ears suddenly twitched. Someone had dismantled the hidden array outside the courtyard. 4 figures dressed in black scaled the wall and entered, landing without a sound, heading straight for my family's study. The moon happened to emerge from behind the clouds, clearly illuminating the faces of the intruders. To my surprise, it was my fiancé, the chief disciple of the Jinghong immortal sect, Chu Yuchen. Behind him followed Liu Susu, who had grown up with us since childhood, and 2 sect members exuding murderous intent. As the 4 of them stumbled upon this scene, they instantly froze in their tracks. These were white jade steps that even high-level cultivators would find hard to shatter. As for me, I was supposedly just the frail eldest young mistress of the Shen family, who could be blown over by a gust of wind. My mind raced to find a way out, and I immediately clutched my chest, fainting right on the spot. Intruders. Xiao Tao. Quick, protect me. I'm so scared. Just now, I don't know who threw a piece of scrap metal in here and smashed the steps to pieces. Chu Yuchen's expression shifted several times, a flicker of suspicion crossing his eyes, but he immediately forced a warm smile.
Huiyi, don't panic. It is me. I saw a shadow in your family's study and was worried an intruder had broken in. I didn't expect to frighten you instead.
So it is Brother Yuchen. You really frightened me. I clutched my chest, gasping heavily for breath. Xiao Tao supported me as I stood up. But for you to lead your junior sister and sect members in the middle of the night, to scale the wall into my family's backyard, if word of this gets out, I'm afraid it might damage the reputation of both you and your sect brother. Liu Susu took a step forward, delicately reaching out her hand.
Sister Huiyi, everyone was just worried about you. Why are your hands so cold, sister? Were you really that frightened?
Just as her fingers were about to touch my palm, a trace of hidden dark energy crept along with her touch, trying to probe my true strength. Don't even think about it. I quickly pulled my hand back, just managed to avoid her touch. Sister Susu, don't touch me. My eyes grew even redder as I stared at her pitifully. I was so scared my whole body is shivering. I was just afraid of breaking any rules. The black energy gathered at Liu Susu's fingertips missed its mark. Chu Yuchen's eyes were full of suspicion, but he couldn't grasp any solid evidence. Sneaking into someone else's yard was already underhanded. If this escalated, he clenched his teeth.
It was too reckless of me. Rest well, Huiyi. I will come to see you again tomorrow.
With that, he led the 3 of them and hurriedly scaled the wall to escape. Their figures merged into the night, in the direction they left. I rolled my eyes hard. Is that all? And you still want to steal our Siju Soul Quieting Score and Phoenix Soul Jade? I sneered. Early in the morning, in front of the Fengjiang noodle shop, at the very end of that long queue.
Young mistress, did Master Chu really not notice last night? Xiao Tao asked this question for the 18th time. Those jade steps were shattered to pieces.
I sniffed hard. A faint aroma of mutton drifted through the air, instantly making me feel energized. My mind was filled with nothing but that pot of boiling broth. So what if he did? Scrap metal falling. From the sky, right? Ridiculous. This lady isn't afraid at all. If I didn't want to avoid the hassle, I could have made those 4 idiots walk in last night and carry them out horizontally. Xiao Tao wanted to say something more, but a commotion broke out in the queue ahead. The shopkeeper's voice was extremely loud.
Only 3 bowls left. The last 3 bowls of our signature first. Pop mutton noodles today.
My body reacted faster than my brain. I instinctively wanted to squeeze my way to the front, but Xiao Tao firmly held me back by my sleeve.
Miss, your image. My image.
Right. I was the #1 delicate lady in town. Our Shen household appeared to be a family of prominent zither players on the surface, but in reality, we were the descendants of the divine phoenix, guarding the subterranean demon seal for generations. Our family's divine martial art was the heavenly iron fist. I could lift stone lions at age 3 and became a top martial master by age 10. But my mother, the former grand clan chief of the Phoenix clan, insisted on forcing me to act like a gentle and sweet lady of noble birth to prevent revealing my identity as a guardian and attracting attacks from the demons underground. I had been playing the role of a sickly beauty for over a decade. Only my family knew the truth about me. By the time it was my turn, only the last bit of white broth was bubbling in the pot.
The very last bowl of our signature first, pot mutton noodles. Who wants to buy it?
The shopkeeper's loud voice sounded like heavenly music to my ears. I want to buy it. I've been queuing since before dawn. Charge. Grab it. I wanted to push everyone in front of me aside with my hands. No. Shen Huiyi, control yourself. You are a delicate, clumsy beauty. Think of mother's rules of conduct for noble ladies. Think of scissors and needlework. As I was dazed, a large hand handed a coin over to the shopkeeper.
Shopkeeper, I'll buy this bowl of noodles.
His voice was clear and crisp. I turned my face stiffly. Under the morning sunlight, the young gentleman wore a blue robe, his stature as straight and upright as a pine tree. His profile was sharp and well-defined, even more handsome than an immortal in a painting. But handsome or not. Excuse me, young master. I was the one waiting here first for this bowl of noodles. That fellow had already taken the bowl. The noodles in this bowl had white broth and fragrant meat, with green scallions floating on top.
Oh. But I was the first to pay. I doubt you could push through this crowd, miss. Why not let the kitchen whip up another bowl for you?
I bit my lip hard, feeling my teeth itch with frustration. Listen to him. Is that any way to speak? The soul of the first batch of noodles lies in being from that very first pot. If the kitchen boils another batch, would it taste the same? But there is only one bowl of the first batch left. My voice sounded even more aggrieved, with tears welling up in my eyes, making me look truly pitiful. This guy is a better actor than I am. How can he be so unreasonable? I'll remember you. I'll poke a straw doll with needles when I get back. Using the phoenix needle to poke it, Xiao Tao quietly tugged at my sleeve, leaning in close to my ear.
That seems to be Master Xie Lanfeng from the capital, the youngest son of the Great Martial Alliance chief. The mahogany carving master old carpenter Chen praises every day. He has been living in our town for 3 years. The rumored dragon guardian, whose mahogany craft and dragon dance skills are unmatched in the world, whom every girl in the martial world dying to marry, yet who always gives everyone a cold, grumpy face. Xie Lanfeng.
I watched as he carried the bowl of noodles away, leisurely walking over to sit at the best table by the window. He actually poured a small spoonful of secret chili oil into the noodles, making the aroma even more pungent. Xie Lanfeng. The grudge of the stolen noodles. I, Shen Huiyi, will remember this. Over the next half a month or so, the two of us became like statues at the entrance of the noodle shop. We would grab seats before dawn. Xie Lanfeng snatched 8 times, while I only managed twice. It wasn't that I couldn't beat him, but I absolutely couldn't show my real martial arts skills in public. Every time I failed to get a seat, I would go home and stay up late, make a paper and straw effigy of Xie Lanfeng, and stab it furiously with my phoenix needle. As for Xie Lanfeng, he would always sit leisurely at his usual spot by the window, watching me squatting angrily outside the entrance. A few times, while I was throwing a silent tantrum at the empty dining table, a plate of thinly and finely sliced, glistening and mouth-watering secret recipe roast duck would be pushed in front of me. Looking at that plate of meat, I had a fierce struggle inside my mind. Taking a bite would mean admitting defeat. However, this roast duck was made from prime-grade ducks, fattened on celestial herbs, and marinated with a unique blend of spices. People said eating it could nourish one's entire body and bones. This aroma was clearly forcing me to break my resolve. In the end, my appetite and stomach usually defeated my pitiful dignity. Xie Lanfeng would just stroke his chin, and the faint smile on his lips looked incredibly annoying no matter how I viewed it. These past 2 weeks slipped by quickly in a cycle of snatching noodles, stabbing the effigy, eating roast duck, and throwing tantrums. When this particular evening came, my parents walked into the house with heavy expressions.
Huiyi, I've settled things with young Master Chu and the elder of the Jinghong sect. Your wedding day is set for the soul-tranquilizing Grand Temple Fair in Shuangfeng Town 6 months from now.
In half a year, at the great soul-soothing temple fair, that happened to be the period when the subterranean dark magic seals. Energy was at its most violent, and most in need of sealing. I suddenly recalled the undisguised greed in the eyes of Chu Yuchen and his companions last night. They couldn't wait any longer, and my mother is delivering me with her own hands into that eating pit. The moment word of the wedding spread just a little through the town, that pretentious drama queen showed up at our door.
Sister Huiyi.
As soon as she laid eyes on me, she immediately trotted over with tiny steps.
Susu has arrived late. You aren't angry with me, are you, sister?
My mother was forcing me to practice my embroidery in the main hall, and the needle tip almost pricked right under my fingernail. Hearing those words, I lifted my face, which still looked sickly and weak. What are you talking about, Sister Susu? Hurry inside.
It must have been a tiring journey.
Here she comes, cozying up with her hypocritical and pretentious act. She is a female thief who climbs over walls in the dead of night. So who is she putting on this pathetic act for now? Sure enough, my mother's heart turned completely to mush. She stood up and grasped Liu Susu's hand.
Look at your sister Susu. She has such proper manners, unlike you, who thinks about nothing but eating cheap noodles all day.
Liu Susu immediately lowered her head, fidgeting with her clothes, as her voice grew even more fragile.
Auntie, please don't be so harsh on sister. Sister's health is weak, so she indeed needs to eat more good food. Unlike me, who became an orphan at a young age and lived by following my master. Seeing sister protected by such a wonderful mother like you, I am truly envious.
Before she could even finish her sentence, the rims of her eyes turned red again.
My mother's maternal instincts instantly surged, and she patted her hand, comforting her like a precious treasure. What a truly pitiful girl. Come visit more often in the future. Huiyi, you should learn more from her.
Learn from her? Like hell I will. Liu Susu seized the opportunity and cast that pitiful, pleading gaze toward me.
Sister Huiyi, my coming here this time is first to congratulate you on your approaching wedding, and secondly, I also want to be a sister to you and help Brother Yuchen with a few things. Please set your mind at ease, sister. I would never try to steal him from you.
Good grief, taking a step back to advance. The classic playing dumb routine. My mother's eyes instantly darted toward me, immediately took on an air of scrutiny and warning. I tossed aside my embroidery hoop. Ha ha ha. What are you talking about, sister? Young Master Yuchen treats you like a real sister anyway. You're practically his own flesh and blood. I couldn't be happier that you're here. Happy my foot. The two of you should hook up as soon as possible and stop messing with my peaceful life. Liu Susu ended up staying at our house for half a month. Every single day, she was all sister this and sister that, completely winning my mother over until she treated her like her own daughter. As for me, I gained a sweet little sister who followed me around like a shadow. On this particular day, she insisted on dragging me to the Dragon Lion woodcarving shop at the east end of town, saying she wanted to witness young master Xie Lanfeng's miraculous skills. Xie Lanfeng, that jerk who snatched my first bowl of noodles and poured chili oil all over them.
Don't you want to go, sister?
Liu Susu blinked her large, innocent-looking eyes.
I heard that the dragon lions carved by young Master Xi look alive once he paints their eyes. It is absolutely miraculous. Brother Yuchen also said that young Master Xi is the top master among the younger generation.
Liu Susu praising Xie Lanfeng. That is a wolf in sheep's clothing if I ever saw one. I wanted to see for myself what this scheming woman had up her sleeve. Inside the wood carving shop, wood shavings were flying everywhere, and the air was filled with the pleasant scent of sandalwood and magic. Xie Lanfeng was working behind a large, raw timber table. His blue sleeves were rolled up, revealing well-toned arms. As he focused intently on carving an unfinished mahogany dragon head, Liu Susu's voice was as soft as a mosquito's buzz.
Young Master Xi.
Xie Lanfeng didn't even raise his eyelids. From her sleeve, Liu Susu pulled out an exquisitely crafted, pale yellow sachet.
You carve wood every day, young master. It must be so exhausting. This is a sleep sachet I made myself. It is filled with herbs to soothe the mind. I hope it can be of some help to you, young master.
I leaned against the doorframe, folding my arms to watch the show. Well. Two, timing them both. On one hand, she is acting devoted to Chu Yuchen, and on the other, she is playing the shy, helpless girl for Xie Lanfeng. A true master of time management. Xie Lanfeng still didn't look up.
No need. I don't need external things to settle my mind. Please suit yourself, miss.
A clean and decisive rejection. Liu Susu's outstretched hand rose in midair, looking utterly pitiful. I seized the opportunity to step forward. Are you all right, sister? Young Master Xi is just like this. He doesn't mean anything personal by it. Liu Susu took the chance to lean toward me.
Sister Huiyi, I know I shouldn't let my mind wander. I'm just so envious of you, sister, to have such a wonderful marriage with Brother Yuchen.
Here she goes with this act again. Silly girl. You are so sweet. You will surely find someone who truly treats you well. Like that scumbag Chu Yuchen, for instance. The two of you would make a perfect match. Xie Lanfeng finally stopped his work. He raised an eyebrow almost imperceptibly, and the corner of his mouth seemed to twitch upward ever so slightly. We left the wood carving shop.
Sister, look over there. That is the Fengxiang noodle shop. I heard their signature mutton noodles are delicious. Shall we go try them?
Alarm bells rang in my mind. The noodle shop was my territory. Yet, a flawless smile remained on my face. Sure. I happened to be a bit hungry too. We arrived at the noodle shop. It was time for the noodle grabbing contest again. Without anyone noticing, Xie Lanfeng had taken his usual seat again. Liu Susu sat obediently next to me, eating her noodles in small bites. Yet her eyes darted toward Xie Lanfeng from time to time. After finishing the noodles, Liu Susu suddenly clutched her chest and said,
Sister, I feel a bit stifled here. Shall we go for a stroll by the lake?
It is quiet by the lake, with willows swaying in the breeze. Liu Susu found a stone bench and sat down. From her personal pouch, she took out a small jade zither. At first, the music was crisp, like a small stream in the mountains. Gradually, the melody shifted, taking on a lingering, mournful tone. To an ordinary person, it would sound like a young girl in love, with her mind in a flutter. But in those mournful undertones, there hid an extremely subtle, cold, and evil energy. This energy was far too familiar to me. It was exactly the same as the dark magic emitted by the dark demon lord, whom my family had guarded for generations. She truly was a remnant of the dark forces. As Liu Susu played, she still looked so delicate and charming.
Sister, my playing is quite poor. Please don't laugh at me.
My palms were breaking out in a cold sweat, but I forced a complimentary smile onto my face. You play so well, sister. How could I laugh at you? It is just that this melody sounds a bit heartbreaking. Liu Susu's fingers stopped, and the music cut off instantly. She lowered her head and said,
You're right. There are some old matters that I just can't help but feel sad about.
Chu Yuchen's greed, Liu Susu's dark energy, the Requiem Temple Fair 6 months from now, and that increasingly restless demonic seal underground. Every single detail was quietly coming together on this seemingly frail young girl. The faint, blurry shouts of boatmen drifted from afar. Liu Susu packed up her zither and warmly held my arm.
Sister, let's head back. Aunt must be getting anxious waiting for us.
She pulled me along, walking toward the gates of the Shen residence. As we passed Fengxiang Noodle Shop, the rich aroma of stewed mutton wafted out. The shop owner was standing outside.
Eldest Miss Shen, little sister Liu, tomorrow is the Dragon Boat Festival's immortal boat race. The riverbanks will be packed, so be sure to come early.
Sure thing.
She turned to look at me.
Sister, let's go watch the dragon boats together tomorrow. It is bound to be very lively.
Her fingertips brushed past the pressure point on my wrist as if by accident. A barely perceptible, ice-cold dark evil energy retracted the moment it made contact. Looking at her smiling face, I smiled back. Sure. It will definitely be exceptionally lively. On the day of the Dragon Boat Festival in Shuangfeng Town, both sides of the riverway for the immortal boat race were densely packed with crowds of people. The scent of mugwort, realgar, fresh fruits, and pastries drifted through the air. With Xiao Tao shielding me, I managed to squeeze through to a cooked food stall by the river. The owner had just uncovered a pot of his secret recipe duck. The dark red broth bubbled and boiled, and the rich, intense aroma instantly caught my nose. Boss, give me a duck leg. Coming right up. My eyes lit up with anticipation.
Miss Shen, you're in luck today. This batch is cooked to perfection.
The shopkeeper sliced the meat with rapid, practiced movements. Right at that moment, the crowd behind me surged forward violently. Someone yelled at the top of their lungs, "The immortal boat is here." I was jolted forward by the push, my embroidered shoe nearly stepping into a mud puddle. An immortal wooden oar, carved with intricate patterns, blocked my path. The wooden oar was dark and heavy, with faint glimmers of immortal light passing over it. Judging by the race, this part of the immortal boat must have weighed over 1,000 pounds. What kind of useless oar is getting in the way of me buying roast duck? My mind was entirely filled with that glistening, fragrant duck leg. Without a second thought, I reached out with my left hand, gripped it firmly with my 5 fingers, instantly channeled power from my core, and flung it aside. Just as I grabbed the roast duck, I turned around and ran straight into Xie Lanfeng, dressed in a blue robe. He was holding back a mischievous smirk. As he stared at me, startled, I let go of the oar, which crashed down and cracked the ground in several places. I immediately clutched my waist, pretending to have been struck by the oar. Ouch. That really hurts. The surrounding crowd immediately gathered around, staring at the 1,000-pound immortal wooden oar, and chattering away.
Oh my goodness. This oar must weigh 1,000 pounds. How did it just fall like that?
Did it hit Miss Shen? Miss Shen has a weak constitution. How could she possibly withstand this?
Strange. I thought I just saw the eldest Miss Shen use one hand too.
Just as everyone began to grow suspicious, Xie Lanfeng smiled at the crowd to smooth things over.
Everyone, you have it wrong. Just now, I was the one holding the wooden oar for Miss Shen. My hand slipped, and I lost my grip and dropped it. Instead, it ended up startling Miss Shen. It was my fault.
After saying this, he even handed me a handkerchief.
Miss Shen, you are quite strong. You just hit it a bit too quickly.
His fingers were slightly cool, making the back of my hand feel numb where he touched it. My mind was in complete turmoil. Young Master Xi, what nonsense are you talking about? Where would I get any brute strength? I was just terrified just now. He really had seen through me long ago. Are this guy's eyes measuring tapes? Or does he have X-ray vision? My image as a weak, sickly person, my reputation as the town's #1 invalid, is about to shatter into pieces. Xie Lanfeng just looked at me, the smile in his eyes deepening slightly. He did not speak further, and at this moment, by the window of a private room on the second floor of a nearby tea house, Liu Susu tugged on his sleeve.
Brother Yuchen, you saw all of that just now, didn't you?
Chu Yuchen's eyes were fixed intently on the pair by the riverbank, his face looking incredibly dark under the sunlight. He had seen with his own eyes Shen Huiyi lifting with a single hand, and then letting her hand slip and dropping the wooden oar. He had also seen Xie Lanfeng protecting me, handing me a handkerchief, and leaning close to whisper. That scene was an absolute eyesore.
Sister Huiyi seems to be really strong. That wooden oar, even for an ordinary cultivation master, they would probably need both hands to move it, right? And young Master Xie, the two of them seem very intimate. Brother Yuchen, will other people start to gossip?
Chu Yuchen's face darkened even further.
Cut the nonsense. Huiyi is easily frightened. She was probably just anxious and panicked, which triggered a sudden burst of strength. As for Xie Lanfeng, he was purely just lending a hand in passing.
Though he said this, coincidentally, his mind once again flashed back to the scene of the white jade steps shattering that night, smashing the street in the middle of the night, lifting an oar during the day. Shen Huiyi, just how many things about you am I still kept in the dark about? But no matter what, I must make my move. As the commotion below the tea house slowly dispersed, I used the excuse of being frightened to slip away from the crowd and hide in a long corridor by myself. Just as I stood still, a steady, unhurried sound of footsteps echoed behind me. Without even turning around, I knew exactly who it was. I whipped my head around and glared at the blue-robed man walking leisurely toward me, no longer able to maintain my sickly, weak act. Xie Lanfeng. About what just happened. You are not allowed to mention it to anyone, not a single word. Xie Lanfeng stopped in front of me. He looked down at me and nodded with absolute readiness.
I won't say a word.
I let out half a sigh of relief, but then he added unhurriedly.
Only, the next time Miss Shen tries to cover up her brute strength, do pay attention to the onlookers nearby. It won't be every time that someone is there to cover for you, blaming a 1,000-pound oar on a slip of the hand.
I gripped the handkerchief in my hand tightly and glared at him intensely, intending to throw some harsh words back at him. But I realized that besides the roast duck incident, I didn't seem to have any leverage over him. Xie Lanfeng turned back around and looked out at the river beyond the corridor. The faint sound of drumbeats from the immortal boat race drifted over. His profile, illuminated under the pavilion, looked a bit faint. His voice was also slightly softer as he said,
Happy Dragon Boat Festival. Miss Shen, enjoy the grand show.
I followed his gaze to the river. The dragon boats were racing furiously on the water, and the riverbank was a clamor of voices, a scene of great bustle and excitement. But I knew that some deep, dark undercurrents were already hidden beneath this commotion. In the blink of an eye, the day of the Soul-Soothed Grand Show in Shuangfeng Town arrived. A massive crowd was gathered beneath the main stage in the center of the town. Chu Yuchen stood on the stage, dressed in a long robe, smiling gently at me.
Huiyi, today we will join forces. We will surely amaze everyone. Don't be afraid. I'm here.
The arrogance and calculation in his eyes that he couldn't hide looked eyesore and ridiculous to me. I nodded gently, my hand touching the ancestral zither. Okay. I'll leave it all to you, Brother Yuchen. With just these cheap tricks of yours, I've long grown tired of playing along. Just you wait. As soon as I touched the zither strings, a cold, slippery sensation, along with a faint, foul odor, emerged. It was strength-dissipating powder. The strings had been deliberately worn down to be extremely thin, but the most insidious part was a wisp of freezing dark energy wrapped around the strings. How absolute. A double-pronged sabotage. They wanted to ruin me completely and make me lose face in front of everyone. But I walked onto the stage without hesitation. I instantly yanked my hand back, my voice carrying a hint of a sob. Ow! The string cut my hand. It hurts so much. I looked down at the audience pitifully. The crowd below instantly erupted. Chu Yuchen immediately stepped closer, hypocritically supporting me with a face full of worry.
Huiyi, don't panic. It is all right. It is my fault for being useless and not keeping an eye on the instrument beforehand. Let's head down first.
Just as I was about to follow his lead and delicately walk off the stage, a beautiful voice, smooth as water, rang out.
Eldest Miss Shen, your zither is broken.
Without anyone noticing, Xie Lanfeng had stepped onto the stage holding a wooden pipa.
I happen to have a mahogany pipa here. It was crafted by my own hands. If Miss Shen doesn't mind, why not give it a try?
I looked up at him. As he handed over the instrument, his slender fingers discreetly tapped the headstock 3 times. My heart skipped a beat. My eyes quickly swept over the hidden parts of the instrument. The wood grain, as fine as strands of hair, was actually arranged into the spell formation for Song of the Fields. my absolute best piece. Within the requiem of the twin phoenixes, this very melody was the most effective at dispelling dark energy and steadying the mind. I took the instrument. The moment my fingers touched the warm wooden surface, a surge of pure, righteous, immortal energy flowed warmly through my fingers, instantly banishing the sinister coldness that was meant to sabotage me. Thank you, young master. Holding his exquisite mahogany instrument, I stood at the front of the stage once more. My 10 fingers plucked the strings. The very first note sounded like spring water splashing on stone. It wasn't just a melody. It carried an ancient resonance that strongly echoed with protective power. Gradually, the crowd below seemed to see illusions. Glimmering silhouettes of phoenixes soared through the air, following the music, accompanied by a chorus of avian cries. In midair, that trace of cold, dark energy was swept completely away. As the song ended, the entire venue fell silent. Then, thunderous cheers and applause erupted. First place was guaranteed. By the time we left the stage, Chu Yuchen's face had already turned as black as charcoal. Yet Xie Lanfeng, from out of nowhere, produced a projection stone. With a push of his immortal energy, a clear recording appeared in the sky. It was in the middle of the night, just the day before the grand performance, showing Liu Susu sneaking into the Shen family's music room and carefully tampering with my zither. Liu Susu's face immediately turned pale as paper, and her body began to sway. Xie Lanfeng casually threw the projection stone right to Chu Yuchen's feet.
Miss Liu. The day before the competition, you secretly entered Miss Shen's music room, tampered with her zither strings, poisoned her with cultivation, dispersing powder, and coated it with dark energy. Would you like to discuss this properly with your sect master?
No, that is not it. Young Master Shi, I didn't do it.
Tears immediately streamed down Liu Susu's face.
It was Brother Yuchen who ordered me to do it. He told me to do it.
Chu Yuchen's face turned dark as iron. He fiercely flung his sleeve.
Liu Susu. What nonsense are you talking? When did I ever tell you to do that? You're malicious yourself. And yet you want to shift the blame to me.
Liu Susu was so shaken by his shouting that her legs went weak and she collapsed onto the ground. I didn't bother to watch this dog-eat-dog farce any longer. Cradling that redwood pipa, I walked over to a quiet spot in the corridor. Xie Lanfeng was leaning against a pillar, playing with a paper cutting in his hand. The paper figure was in a basic horse stance. It was crude, yet strangely familiar. My heart suddenly skipped a beat. He looked up at me. A faint smile flickered at the corner of his eyes.
Not only did I know Yu Chen messed with your instrument, I also knew that the eldest Miss Shen practices her martial arts in the backyard at midnight, and your punches are incredibly heavy.
I was instantly stunned. So after all this time, this guy had already figured me out completely. And here I was, pretending to be delicate and weak during the day, exhausting myself with the act. It turned out my late-night training sessions had all become his bedtime entertainment. He stared at my completely dumbfounded face and smiled even wider.
The eldest Miss Shen's punches are much more spectacular than those terrible songs of yours.
I looked down, staring at the crude martial arts paper doll in my palm. Those are the divine songs of the Phoenix clan. Your family is the one who sings terrible songs. But just how much does he actually understand? Only 2 days of peace had passed when old carpenter Chen's dragon and lion woodcarving shop ran out of the premium parasol wood he saved for the 3 realms carving competition. Xie Lanfeng had to go to Mount Tiamu to get more wood. This originally had absolutely nothing to do with me, but I heard that in those mountains, dark cultists had been gathering recently. Given Xie Lanfeng's looks, with that fair and handsome face of his, what if he got kidnapped to be a bandit chief's groom? Besides, that premium parasol wood would be perfect to replace the soundboard on my father's old, worn-out chin. So I went to my mother and cried for ages, saying I wanted to burn incense and pray for the elders at the Temple of Peace in the mountains. My mother looked worried.
The mountain roads are rough. With your weak constitution,
With young Master Yuchen and young Master Shi accompanying me, it will be fine. Afraid? My only worry was that there wouldn't be enough bad guys for me to beat up. Chu Yuchen naturally tag-teamed along, hypocritically claiming he would protect me. Liu Susu put on a spectacular performance, claiming she grew up in the mountains and knew the best paths, so she could guide young Master Shi. She would say she couldn't take care of herself and cling to Chu Yuchen's sleeve, crying that she was scared. Xie Lanfeng merely gave her a cold sweep of his eyes, his gaze dark and ominous, but Liu Susu still wouldn't give up.
I swear, I'll just follow and won't cause any trouble.
No need. The mountains are full of monsters. With Sister Liu's delicate constitution, it is safer for you to stay in town.
Chu Yuchen quickly stepped in to smooth things over.
Susu, just follow me. If you get tired, just say so, and we'll take a rest.
And just like that, our group was assembled. Along the way, Liu Susu was either twisting her ankle or feeling dizzy. She was either calling for Chu Yuchen to support her or trying to get Xie Lanfeng to carry her on his back. She also mocked me from time to time for having a weak constitution, yet still coming to the mountains to cause trouble. Sitting in the sedan chair Chu Yuchen had ordered for her, Liu Susu lectured me.
Sister Shen, This mountain path is difficult to walk. If you can no longer ride your horse, why don't you let Xiao Tao ride with you?
I could barely hold myself back. If you say another word, believe it or not, I will lift this sedan chair of yours and hurl it down the mountain like a toy. Xie Lanfeng rode his horse at the very front. Occasionally, he would turn his head, and as his gaze swept over to our side, he would always lock onto my face with absolute precision, seeing right through my act of being weak and fragile. Then his lips would curl up in a barely perceptible smirk. That smile made my back teeth grind with annoyance. Liu Susu, of course, noticed it too. Her eyes flared with jealousy. She secretly crushed a signaling jade pendant inside her sleeve. I just pretended not to see it. She has finally summoned those dark cultists. Perfect. I can settle all my old and new grudges at once. We walked into a ravine shaped like the neck of a gourd. The surrounding cliffs rose sheer, and the woods were dark and quite terrifying. Xie Lanfeng, who was leading the way, suddenly raised his hand. All the men and horses came to an immediate halt. In the air, an intermittent smell of blood mingled with the fragrance of flowers and grass.
Be on your guard.
Xie Lanfeng warned. Sure enough, more than 20 bandits leaped out from the surrounding woods, all holding strangely shaped curved sabers. Their leader was a burly, blind man. Fearing that the horses would panic and run amok, the women hastily dismounted, seized with panic. Liu Susu hurriedly stepped out of her carriage. I claim this mountain. Leave all your spiritual herbs and treasures behind. Bind the men. As for the women, especially that weak little girl, surnamed Shen, and that young master, who looks handsomer than an immortal. Bring them both back to the ravine, for my pleasure. Chu Yuchen shielded Liu Susu.
How insolent. The great Jinghong sect is here. Get lost this instant.
Liu Susu shrieked in compliance with the act, hiding behind Chu Yuchen's back. Her eyes, however, slyly met the blind leader's gaze for a brief moment, before quickly looking away. Xie Lanfeng had already leaped off his horse. The ordinary-looking wood-carving knife in his hand flashed with the celestial aura of a golden dragon, transforming into a precious sword. Taking a sidestep, he shielded me behind him.
If you want to rob us, you will have to ask this sword first.
Supported by Xiao Tao, I was trying to find an opportunity to slip away. In the chaotic melee, the nearest bandit, seeing that I looked weak and defenseless, raised his saber and lunged at me, accompanied by a howling wind. I held my meat floss tightly in my arms, while the blade missed me. It sliced right through the snack bag I was cradling. Golden, crispy sesame, sprinkled shredded meat, scattered all over the ground like falling flowers. The rich aroma of meat and the unique fragrance of spiritual herbs drifted out immediately. My eyes stared blankly at the pile of dirt-covered meat floss on the ground. If my father could bear this, my mother certainly couldn't. Destroying my snacks? Absolutely not. I'm done acting. I gave Xiao Tao a hard push, sending her behind a large rock nearby, stepped in the 7-star pattern, and dropped into a dragon lion stance. With a flash of my body, like a phantom, I closed in on the demon bandit who had ruined my meat floss. How dare you ruin my meat floss? You're asking for death. The demon bandit clearly hadn't expected such terrifying moves from a delicate girl like me. Pulling my right fist back, my spine surged like a rolling dragon, unleashing the full force of the heavenly god power layer by layer. Enveloping my fist was an incredibly intense, golden red divine fire. Strike. I slammed it straight into his black energy shield. The fist's force broke through, and the divine fire erupted, blasting the demon bandit against the cliffside, where he slid down, limp. Both Xie Lanfeng and Chu Yuchen stopped what they were doing, and looked over at me. I didn't stop. Stepping through the 9 palaces, moving like the wind, I threw a flurry of combos. My punches swung wide and powerful. A demon bandit tried to block desperately with his blade, only to be sent flying along with his weapon. Another villain tried to ambush me from the side. Without even turning my head, I threw a backhand punch. In just over 10 seconds, definitely no more than 10 seconds, the 7 or 8 villains who had rushed at the front were already sprawled all over the place. The remaining ones were so terrified by my martial arts that they stood frozen, unable to move a muscle. I casually reached over to a nearby divine tree, snapped off a thick, heavy branch, pointed it at them, and asked, "Still want to fight?" The blind leader's knees buckled, and he fell to his knees on the spot. He kowtowed repeatedly like a pestle grinding garlic.
Heron, immortal, please spare our lives. My brothers and I failed to recognize your greatness. We would never dare do this again.
The remaining demonic bandits also came to their senses and knelt down in a crowd. Then, a beat too late, I came to my senses as well. Oh no. I stiffly turned my neck. Xie Lanfeng was standing not far away. The sword in his hand had long since turned back into a wood-carving knife. His initial fright was completely gone, replaced by an utterly undisguised look of watching a show. My mind went completely blank. Instinctively, I raised my arm, intending to clutch my chest and play the damsel in distress. But Xie Lanfeng had already walked up to me. He plucked a fallen leaf that had landed in my hair at some point.
Eldest Miss Shen, this skill you displayed in a moment of haste is much stronger than that of young Master Chu from the Jinghong sect.
Shut up. Just don't say a word. Xie Lanfeng, you really are a big bad wolf. My disguise as Zhang Nian's gentlest, most delicate lady is ruined. I looked up and scanned the surroundings. Everything was a mess. Those bandits who had run off in the wrong direction earlier had been dragged back by Xie Lanfeng. The bandit leader glared intently at Liu Susu, who was hiding behind the carriage curtain.
She's the one who gave us a deposit of 50 high-grade spiritual stones and had us lie in ambush at the foot of the mountain. She said that as long as we destroyed eldest Miss Shen's spiritual bone, she would give us another 50 stones. She also told us to kidnap that handsome young master. We have her message talisman as proof.
And the spiritual energy fluctuations on those spiritual stones bear the cloud pattern insignia of the Liu residence. Chu Yuchen's face turned green with anger.
Susu. Is he telling the truth? Did you really collude with the demonic bandits to harm Huiyi?
Liu Susu's carefully applied makeup was ruined by her tears. She shook her head repeatedly.
That is not how it is, Brother Yuchen. They are framing me. I didn't do it. I don't know these people at all.
She turned her head to look at me.
Sister Huiyi, you must believe me. How could I ever harm you?
Her eyes were filled with pleading, supported by Xiao Tao. I spoke in a soft voice. Sister Susu, I want to believe you too. But they even produced the messenger talisman you gave them. I intentionally put on a troubled expression, though I was actually thrilled to the bone inside. Xie Lanfeng stood to the side, leisurely pulling a stack of projection stones from his sleeve. The illusions flickered, displaying complete physical evidence of Liu Susu meeting with the demon bandits.
Miss Liu, your celestial energy signature is on these. Are you still going to deny it? For 3 days before entering the mountains, you spent all day at the tea house at the town entrance, meeting with the demon bandits. I found out long ago that you were in contact with the remnants of the dark forces. Bringing you into the mountains this time was precisely to catch you in the act.
Looking at the projection stones, Liu Susu felt as if she had fallen into an ice cave. Seeing the irrefutable evidence, the last shred of goodwill in Chu Yuchen's eyes shattered. He suddenly lashed out at Liu Susu.
Liu Susu, I must have been blind to bring you out with me. To think you are so wicked, that you would collude with demon bandits to harm a fellow disciple, and even try to harm young Master Shi. From this day forward, never call me Brother Yuchen again. My Jinghong sect has no place for scum like you.
Two of Chu's followers immediately stepped forward, locking her in the dark room of the celestial ship. She was to be escorted back to Shuangfeng town immediately, and handed over to the sect's disciplinary hall for interrogation.
Young sect master.
As he passed by me, he was gnashing his teeth in pure rage. That look in his eyes seemed like it wanted to rip me to shreds. No matter, I'm tough. After this incident, I completely stopped putting on an act in front of Xie Lanfeng. Since my image was already shattered to pieces anyway, there was no point in trying to glue it back together. On the way back to Shuangfeng town, as darkness fell, the backyard of the inn was brightly lit. Xie Lanfeng accompanied me in the yard to practice my punches. Watching my stance, he suddenly reached out and pressed his palm against my waist. His warmth radiated right through my clothes.
When you punch, use your core. Put a bit more force into it. The divine fire must be wrapped around your fist. If the steps of your dragon lion stance are a bit steadier, it will be perfect.
I pulled back my fist and looked up at him, my heart suddenly skipping a beat. You actually know martial arts, so you playing the easygoing young master all day was also just an act. Xie Lanfeng chuckled and handed me a flask of elixir water.
I know a bit, but I'm no match for heroine Shen.
My face flushed hot, and I kicked him in the leg. Don't call me that. In the eyes of outsiders, I'm still a sickly young lady.
Right. A delicate, fragile lady.
He nodded in agreement, but his smile grew even wider. For those few nights, we spent the whole night carving magical artifacts. By midnight, our stomachs would be empty, and we would sneak out to eat mutton noodles. The mutton pot was steaming, and the mutton was sliced paper thin. With just a quick dip in the boiling broth, it became incredibly tender. Xie Lanfeng gave me all the meat from his bowl, while drinking only the broth himself.
Eat up. We still have a battle to fight later.
You're so naggy. I lowered my head and stuffed my face, but my heart felt incredibly warm. Before we set off, the pair of dragon and lion magical artifacts that would protect the town were finally completed. The moment the dragon's eyes were painted on, the wooden lion came to life, looking exceptionally spirited.
Everything is ready. It is time to take them out to show the world what they can do.
The Grand Dragon and Lion Festival began right on schedule in various districts. The venue was packed so tightly that not even a gust of wind could pass through. Xie Lanfeng put on a smart-looking, short-sleeved black shirt. He looked incredibly handsome. All the young ladies and married women couldn't keep their eyes off him. He led his team, followed by a uniformed group of highly energetic elites from our town. Chu Yuchen also led a team on behalf of the Jinghong sect. They happened to be positioned directly opposite us. His gaze was like a poisoned thorn, darting between Xie Lanfeng and me every now now and then, especially when I wasn't paying attention, and nearly slipped, only to be caught effortlessly by Xie Lanfeng with a quick pull. I sneered in my heart. He is getting anxious. Getting anxious. The mad dog is finally going to hit a wall. An unnamed lackey beside him quietly slipped into the crowd. Over there, a thin, veiled figure was faintly visible. Guanjin. It seems the Chu family's binding array couldn't hold back a fool bent on seeking death. My eyes swept over the front, where the high wooden poles for the dragon and lion dance were being set up. Those poles were made of the sturdiest ironwood, standing a full 30 feet high. According to the rules of the Grand Festival, one had to perform a series of thrilling, high-difficulty moves up there. Representing the town's music troupe owner and technical backbone, my father was responsible for planning part of the layout. Naturally, I also understood how these wooden poles were connected and where their greatest load-bearing points lay. But right now, the acute intuition brought by my phoenix blood allowed me to detect a trace of dark energy. I secretly channeled a wisp of divine fire energy and let it slip inside. Sure enough, the connecting joints had been intentionally scraped thin by more than half. They were so brittle they would break at the slightest touch. What was even more malicious was that inside the core of the wood, an extremely hard to detect explosive formation had been drawn. As long as the weight on them exceeded the limit, or if they were repeatedly stepped on with force, the demonic formation would detonate. And it wasn't just this single pole. I quickly scanned the other load-bearing poles. Large and small, they had all been tampered with in the same way. What a ruthless, insidious plot. They wanted Xie Lanfeng to suffer a fall in front of everyone, ruining his spiritual root on the spot. My anger flared right up to my head. Should I expose it right now? No way. The shills planted by Chu Yuchen had already strolled over and gathered around. If I showed any sign of suspicion right now, they would immediately start a commotion, which would end up ruining everything instead.
Mistress, what do we do?
Xiao Tao was sweating profusely from anxiety. Don't panic. I took a deep breath, forcing myself to calm down as my mind raced for a solution. Right at that moment, the announcer's loud voice echoed throughout the venue.
The auspicious hour has arrived. Will the Twin Phoenix Immortal Town Dragon Lion Dance Team please mount the poles?
Xie Lanfeng looked at me. I shook my head at him with an extremely subtle movement, then quickly used my eyes to hint at the long wooden poles. His gaze locked on, and he gave a barely perceptible nod. He indeed understood. Chu Yuchen's side also sent out their team, which was a spirited great fire lion. Both sides immediately began mounting the poles to compete. Just as Xie Lanfeng's foot was about to step onto the very first, tampered hard ironwood pole, I made my move. Oh no. My entire body stumbled and pitched forward, crashing straight into that main load-bearing stake.
Careful, Miss Shen. Simone in the crowd cried out, followed by a dull and terrifying crack.
The stake with the shaved-down joint snapped right down the middle. While I was violently pushed back by the recoil, I collapsed delicately onto the ground. Ow, it hurts. My foot.
What happened?
The eldest Miss Shen knocked down and broke a main stake.
Oh my god, is she hurt?
The group of people arranged by Chu Yuchen were just about to speak up and stir up trouble, but they were instantly silenced by this sudden, shocking noise. Chu Yuchen's face turned pale on the spot. Beside him, behind her veiled hat, Liu Susu clenched her fists even tighter. Xie Lanfeng moved incredibly fast. He almost instantly cast aside the lion dance head in his hands.
Huiyi, how are you? Are you hurt anywhere? Are your bones okay?
I curled up in his arms. I quickly blinked at him amidst the chaos. It was tampered with. The crack in the array. The look in Xie Lanfeng's eyes shifted. He understood instantly. He whipped his head up, staring at the judge's table and old man Chen, who managed this area.
Everyone, please look at this large wooden post.
He let go of me himself and walked quickly over to the broken post and held the splintered piece high for everyone to see.
This cut is so clean. It was shaved down beforehand with a blade, and inside the wood.
And there is even a malicious explosive array left behind. A ring of light suddenly lit up inside the wooden stake, releasing a sickening, cold, and evil energy.
And not just this one. I must trouble Master Chen to inspect all the remaining pillars immediately.
Old man Chen led several carpenters to conduct a rapid inspection. The more the old man looked, the paler his face became.
All of them. All the load-bearing pillars. Their joints have been sabotaged. And most of them have these deadly arrays hidden inside. If anyone were to step on them and leap with full force, the consequences would be unthinkable.
This was an attempt on people's lives. Which bastard did this?
The entire venue erupted in an absolute frenzy. Glances filled with fury, fear, and suspicion were all fixed dead on Chu Yuchen and his cohort. After all, to be able to meddle with the wooden structures so precisely on the night before the grand event, The prime suspect could only be the Jinghong sect, who coveted the hosting rights of Shuangfeng town. Chu Yuchen stood frozen, on the spot, enduring the torrent of curses from the crowd. He opened his mouth, desperate to clear his name, only to realize that all the evidence pointed directly at him. Any excuses at this point were utterly useless. What a joke. This wicked duo was clearly in league with each other. Despite their earlier show of punishment and confinement, Liu Susu was hiding not far away, her hand quietly reaching for the escape talisman at her waist, leaning against Xie Lanfeng's chest. I whispered softly to him. Xie Lanfeng understood immediately.
Since you are already here, there is no need to rush off.
Before his voice even faded, the Alliance disciples who had seemed to be idling around sprang into action instantly. Dozens of bright blades unsheathed at once, surrounding the wicked duo like an iron wall. Seeing her escape route cut off, Liu Susu decided to throw caution to the wind. She threw herself toward the stage, crying out loudly.
It was her. It was Sister Huiyi who purposely smashed the pillars. She knew all along that the pillars had been sabotaged. Yet she said nothing beforehand. She wanted to ruin this match. And ruined Big Brother Yuchen and young Master Shi. I have here the letters she exchanged with the demon rebels. Everyone, look.
She suddenly grabbed a blood-stained paper from her bosom and held it high. Hearing this, the surrounding crowd instantly erupted into wild speculation. Chu Yuchen also seemed to catch a saving straw. His eyes lit up, and he quickly nodded and bowed.
That is right. It must be Shen Huiyi, who was too malicious. She couldn't bear to see Susu and me, or our Jinghong sect, doing well.
I almost laughed out loud. They really are a perfect match. Even at death's door, they still try to use me as a shield. Xie Lanfeng held my arm, squeezing gently to remind me not to panic. With one hand behind his back, he slowly pulled out a cold, glowing projection stone. I was dumbfounded. A cultivation treasure, a premium projection stone, was like a common cabbage in his hands.
Sister Liu, don't be in such a hurry to frame others. First, listen to the voices in here. Who is the one speaking?
A wave of immortal energy immediately rippled outward, vividly playing back their previous conversation.
Big Brother Yuchen. Once that guy named Shi falls off the stage, we will blame it all on Shen Huiyi. After that, the Shen family's wood carving shop and soul-suppressing orb will be ours. Once we snatch the Phoenix Jade and break the magical array, we will eliminate Shen Huiyi and Xie Lanfeng to avoid any future trouble.
Fine, we'll do exactly as you say. Once it is done, I will marry you.
The onlookers' jaws almost dropped to the ground.
My goodness, this is clearly a plot of murder for treasure.
One scheme after another. This woman is way too ruthless.
That guy named Chu is no saint either. Living off a woman and then wanting to take her life.
Chu Yuchen's face turned as pale as paper. Beads of sweat poured down his forehead. He shoved Liu Susu away.
It was her. This was all Liu Susu's own idea. She threatened me. I had absolutely no idea what she wanted to do.
I have absolutely nothing to do with her. This sudden betrayal was practically worthy of a top-tier actor. Liu Susu stared blankly at Chu Yuchen.
Chu Yuchen, what nonsense are you talking about? Clearly, we planned this together, and now you're pinning all the blame on me.
While being held by Xie Lanfeng, I spoke up. Miss Liu, you two don't need to argue anymore. With both testimonies and evidence fully present, neither of you can escape. With a casual wave of my hand, Xiao Tao immediately stepped forward, holding a tray. On the tray lay a few pieces of wood bark and a silk thread. Every single large wooden post bears our family's unique phoenix mark. On the wooden post that was tampered with, there are clear traces of bark from the demon bandit's hands, as well as the colored silk thread Liu Susu uses to sew her sachet. The referee could no longer hold out either.
I'll confess everything. It was Liu Susu who gave me 500 top-grade spirit stones to help her frame Miss Shen. And she told me to turn a blind eye during the martial arts contest so that I wouldn't point out any issues.
Liu Susu was instantly dumbfounded. Chu Yuchen stared at her, his eyes filled with utter disgust. He quickly leaped backward and roared loudly at the arriving Jinghong sect disciples.
What are you staring at? Tie up this madwoman who colluded with the demon bandit, plotted against fellow disciples, and ruined our sect's reputation. Send her to the Immortal Alliance dungeon immediately and deal with her according to the harshest rules.
He then turned around. He bowed deeply to the elders at the judges' table.
This matter is entirely Liu Susu's doing. It has nothing to do with most disciples of our Jinghong sect, and even less to do with my father. Yuchen failed in his discipline and misjudged her character. I am willing to accept punishment.
He wanted to sacrifice a pawn to save the castle. Liu Susu was grabbed by the Immortal Alliance disciples, who ruthlessly twisted her arms and bound her.
Chu Yuchen, your death wouldn't even expiate your crimes. All of you will be cursed by heaven.
But absolutely no one paid her any attention. Like a street rat, She was dragged out of the noisy venue. Chu Yuchen was also taken away by the Jinghong sect elders. After the farce ended, the night was already very deep, braving everyone's suggestive and teasing looks. Xie Lanfeng directly carried me on his back. I can actually walk. Leaning on his broad back, I muttered softly,
Don't squirm. Finish the act, my little delicate Shen.
Fine then. I leaned against him trustingly, smelling the refreshing pine-like scent on his body, and closed my eyes to rest, playing weak today. Although it almost fell apart, but this result was truly worth it. Upon entering the guest house, he gently placed me on the soft bed, then he knelt on one knee, lifting the hem of my skirt. Sure enough, my calf was bruised from the impact. He produced a white porcelain jar from somewhere, scooped out a bit of cool ointment, and with warm fingers, pressed onto the bruise with just the right amount of pressure. After a slight sting, a cool sensation spread. His long eyelashes cast a dark shadow under his eyes, his face full of earnestness and tenderness. The room is so quiet that only the sound of our breathing remains. He rubs it in very carefully. He has helped me yet again.
Huiyi.
He lifts his head. Those eyes, which always seem to hold the stars and the sea, gaze at me.
How should I repay you?
I look at that face close before me and have a sudden lapse of reason. How about marrying you in return? The moment I say it, I want to bite my tongue off. Why did you have to blabber? Xie Lanfeng freezes for a second and immediately smiles. Then, under my terrified gaze, he slowly lowers his head and his warm lips lightly brush against my bruised knee. It is just a fleeting touch, but like a tiny jolt of static electricity, it instantly travels from my knee through every joint of my body, leaving me utterly dazed.
All right. Marrying me in return. Miss Shen must be as good as her word.
I am instantly stunned. I was just talking nonsense. How did he actually agree to it? This turn of events makes no sense. My face blushes red in an instant, the heat rushing straight to the crown of my head. I am certain I look as red as a cooked shrimp. I was only teasing. But my arm is caught by a warm, powerful hand. With a gentle tug, he pulls my hand to his chest, right over his heart, through his clothes. I could feel his heart racing.
I'm not telling a joke. Huiyi, I've set my heart on you.
My whole body went stiff, falling deep into his eyes, which were filled with seriousness and affection.
Ever since that first time in the noodle shop, when I saw you couldn't get the first batch of noodles, and secretly rolled your eyes in frustration, only to turn back around and play the pity card with the shopkeeper, I had already set my heart on you.
The next morning, the disciplinary decision of the Jinghong sect echoed throughout the small town of Shuangfeng. Chu Yuchen was dragged back to the mountain by the Jinghong sect. His title of senior disciple was stripped away in public. 30% of his spiritual roots were sealed, and he was sentenced to the freezing, windswept cliff of reflection. For a full decade, this punishment was by no means light. It essentially shattered any hope of him competing for the position of sect leader in the future. Speaking of Liu Susu, she fared even worse. She was taken to the Alliance dungeon, originally destined to endure the punishment of the 9 Netherworld Thunderstrikes. Who would have thought that a veteran of the demonic cult would actually take the risk to break her out and take her away? Since then, in the martial world, there was no longer that delicate junior sister Liu of the Jinghong sect. Instead, under the dark cult leader, there was now a demoness who fed on pure malice. Winter that year arrived extraordinarily early. Heavy snow blocked the mountain paths. Xie Lanfeng went to that area to pick up a batch of refined redwood spiritual vessels. It was supposed to be a routine transaction, but Liu Susu got wind of it beforehand. She colluded with the dark cult leader to set a trap. Dozens of demonic cult thugs trapped Xie Lanfeng in the demon kiln, wounded him using the dragon trapping formation, sealed his dragon magic, and bound him to the dragon trapping post. When the news reached the Shen residence, I was nestled in the warm room eating roast duck. The duck leg was dripping with oil, the skin was crispy, and the meat was tender. I had just taken a huge bite, my mouth full of delicious grease, when Xiao Tao came stumbling in.
My lady, the demon cultist sent word. If you want the young master to live, you must ransom him with the Shen family's demon-suppressing score and the Phoenix Dharma Jade. You must come alone to the abandoned demon kiln. If you bring anyone else, they will instantly crush his dragon core.
I tossed my half-eaten duck leg back onto the plate. Xiao Tao's face went completely pale with fright, and she fell to her knees in the room with a thud.
My lady, this is a trap. You cannot go. We must quickly ask the Alliance for help.
I stood up, walked to the base of the wall, reached out, and took down the wooden zither that I usually kept there just for show. By the time everyone gets here, Xie Lanfeng will be dead. The dark cult leader. And Liu Susu. How dare you touch my man? Today, I will level your wretched demon lair to the ground. The abandoned demon kiln was in a worse state than I had imagined. Over a dozen dark cult thugs were guarding the inside, and Xie Lanfeng was tied to the dragon binding wood in the center, exposing his bleeding wounds below.
Huiyi, run. This is a trap. Don't worry about me. Escape quickly.
Staring at his wounded figure, a cold fury surged violently in my eyes. Only one thought remained in my heart. He is my man. Who dares to cross him? The cult leader sat on a stone bench above, looking down at me as I burst through the entrance and burst into wild laughter.
I didn't expect the eldest daughter of the Shen family to actually have the guts to come to this meeting alone. It seems you truly care for your beloved, enough to disregard your own life. Did you bring the music score?
I didn't bother to pay attention to him and walked straight towards Xie Lanfeng, only to have my path blocked by several blades. Xie Lanfeng shouted at me.
Huiyi, ignore these people. They have set up a dark array. Leave quickly.
I smiled at him, my gaze softening a bit. I immediately threw the wooden zither onto the ground. Divine fire burned along my fingers to the tips of my fists, illuminating the dazed faces of the cultists nearby. Liu Susu stepped out from the shadows, holding a poisoned blade in her hand.
Shen Huiyi, you've finally come. I've been looking forward to this day for a very long time.
She advanced step by step.
Aren't you quite something? Aren't you great at seducing men? Today, I'll make sure you die here. And I will take this seductive face of yours and slash it to pieces.
A bad woman calling someone else a seductive face. Liu Susu. I thought you wanted to hide, too ashamed to show your face. What is the matter? Did joining the Dark Overlord make you think you're powerful again?
If not for you, Brother Yuchen would never have driven me away, and young Master Shi wouldn't have refused to even look at me.
Liu Susu shrieked loudly.
It is all because of you. Today, I will make you pay with your blood.
I let out a low, cold snort, stepping half a pace forward with my right leg. The stone slab beneath my foot shattered instantly. The Dark Overlord's face changed dramatically. He leaped up abruptly.
Kill her.
Over a dozen figures in black immediately charged forward, the cold gleam of their swords and sabers flashing into a single sheet of light. The pressure of the dragon trapping formation bore down heavily toward my head. Atop the dragon trapping wood, Xie Lanfeng's eyes looked as if they were about to split open in panic. I made my move. With a stomp of my foot, the stone slab beneath shattered into dust. Time to use this lot to practice my skills. A fierce wind whipped up violently, carrying the bright red divine fire. As I charged into the crowd, when the evil energy met the divine fire, it was like snow meeting the sun. Wherever my fist struck, every single stone crumbled inch by inch and scorched. Next, I cracked my wrists. The faces of the remaining cultists turned pale green with fear. Who cared about formations anymore? They shrieked and screamed. They hurled their evil blades, poison needles, and toxic miasma, unleashing everything they had in my direction. The cave instantly lit up with a chaotic array of colors. As cold winds howled past, they just weren't aiming very well. Dodging, sliding, pivoting my hips, and striking, an evil blade slashed across my arm, leaving not even a scratch. Steel needles struck my back, feeling like nothing more than a mild itch. I decided to stop dodging altogether. Relying on my physical body, I charged straight into the crowd. My sky-shattering fists overflowed with dominant power, accompanied by the divine fire. The heavy thuds of my iron fists echoed relentlessly. Take this for using poison. Take this for shooting arrows. Take this for being so ugly. How dare you show your faces in public? One sweep of my leg took down a whole group. Inside the dark stone cave, I was like a rampaging armored dinosaur. Wherever the divine fire swept, everyone fell to the ground, incapacitated. In just a matter of seconds, the villains still left standing were down to only 2 or 3, all trembling as they fled deeper into the cave. The way they looked at me was no different from seeing a ghost.
Impudent girl, do not be so arrogant.
A furious roar echoed out. The dark cult leader could finally sit still no longer. Covered in bone spikes, black smoke bubbled up, condensing into a massive, wicked black blade, which came hacking right at my head. With such pathetic skills as yours, how dare you show your face? I let out a scoffing laugh, charging forward instead of retreating. Using my most efficient and powerful core-smashing move, I threw a punch straight at that wicked blade. My fist clashed violently against the wicked blade. The divine fire struck the darkest pool of blood in the old dark monster's chest, shattering the bone armor over his vital spots piece by piece. The dark leader's eyes went wide as he lowered his head in disbelief, staring at his own chest. Inside the deep pit seared dry by the heat, his active, beating black core had already been reduced to fragments. Furious, he collapsed straight to the ground. Inside the cave, all fell completely silent. Exhaling a long breath of scorching air, I turned my head and rushed toward the dragon, binding pillar. Xie Lanfeng watched me approach, a complex mix of emotions flickering in his eyes. It is all right. I moved in front of him, reaching out to rip apart the sturdy iron chains. Right at that moment, a figure suddenly lunged out from the shadows. A short blade coated with cold poison stabbed fiercely toward my heart.
Shen Huiyi, accept your fate.
Without even turning my head, my body moved on instinct. I spun around, dodged, allowing the short blade to just graze past my clothes. Then, my left hand shot out like lightning, slamming down hard on the back of her hand that held the blade. The sound of bone snapping was exceptionally loud. Liu Susu let out a shrill scream, but the madness in her eyes did not fade one bit. I didn't give her a second chance. In an instant, my right hand clasped tightly around her slender neck. Liu Susu's face turned blue from being choked, as both her hands clawed uselessly at my wrist.
Why? Why does every man cherish you? I look more like a delicate lady than you. You are clearly a monster born with brute strength. Why were you born with the divine bird bloodline, while I can only flee for my life like a rat in the sewers? I won't accept this.
Just because I am holding your throat right now. And you have absolutely no ability to fight back. Chu Yuchen used you as a pawn, and Xie Lanfeng won't even spare you a glance. Liu Susu, what exactly are you fighting for, and what actually belongs to you?
Nonsense. Brother Yuchen has me in his heart. He must have been seduced by you. And Xie Lanfeng is just temporarily.
Shut up.
Without anyone noticing, Xie Lanfeng had already broken free from his chain. He threw down a secret file stamped with the seal of the Immortal Council.
You refuse to accept this. First, take a look at who you really are.
The file fell open. First disciple of the Dark Lord, and the son-in-law of the Liu family, Liu Yuan. Flipping further back, there were records of the Liu family's illicit transactions with demon rebels in the early years. Liu Susu's date of birth was circled in red ink. The next few pages were all terrifying files of murder cases.
You are not the legitimate daughter of Suzhou's Liu family at all. You are the illegitimate daughter of the Dark Lord. Back then, you were left with Liu Yuan to be raised under his name. These dirty records. The Immortal Council has been investigating them for a very long time. Now, both the culprit and the evidence have been secured. Liu Susu, you colluded with the demon rebels to slaughter fellow disciples. Your death sentence is inescapable. This time, not even the gods can save you.
I released my grip on her neck. She collapsed to the ground, losing even the strength to lift her head. Right at that moment, the reinforcements from the Immortal Council finally rushed in.
Young Master Miss Shen.
The lead captain called out as he led his men forward. Xie Lanfeng waved his hand, indicating that everything was fine. His gaze shifted to me, looking me over carefully from head to toe. After confirming that I hadn't been harmed in the slightest, his tightly clenched jaw finally relaxed a little. I moved over to him, looking at his blood-stained clothes and pale face. The manic energy he had shown during the fight just now seemed to have vanished completely. A certain place in my heart softened into absolute mush, yet felt incredibly stifled and distressed. Can you walk? He tried to shift his weight, but his body swayed as a result, his brow furrowing deeply. It was glaringly obvious that the iron pillars in the fight just now had drained way too much of his immortal energy. I gave a soft snort, wasted no more words, exerted a sudden burst of strength, and scooped him up horizontally in a princess carry with perfect precision. He felt pretty good in my arms, quite solid, yet lighter than he appeared. Our surroundings instantly fell silent for a moment. The disciples of the Immortal Association were all utterly dumbfounded. Xie Lanfeng was also stunned, and as far as the eye could see, his ears were quickly dyed a light shade of red.
Put me down quickly. I can manage. Cut the crap.
Holding him in my arms, I couldn't help but complain with mock disdain. Young Master Xie, are you really up to this? You get captured every other day, and every single time, I have to be the one to rescue you. This won't do. From now on, when we go out, I'll have to tie you to my waistband. I'm afraid that if I look away for just a second, you'll get snatched away by someone else again. He first stared in a daze, and then let out a soft, joyful laugh. His body trembled slightly in my arms, and his warm breath brushed against my neck. He simply let go of all his strength, and gently rested his forehead against my shoulder.
All right then. I'll rely entirely on your protection from now on. Champion Shen.
That is more like it. I let out a breath. A tiny snowflake fell on his eyelashes. He blinked slightly, and the arm draped around my neck quietly tightened its grip just a bit. Inside my inner chamber, the brazier kept the room nice and warm. Xie Lanfeng took off his outer coat and lay face down on the soft bed. Under the bright yellow lamplight, several scars could be seen on his back, their edges tinged with a sinister, dark, greenish-black mist. My fingers, coated with cool medicinal oil, brushed across his firm skin. The muscles along his spine instantly tensed up, and a soft groan escaped his lips. Speak up if it hurts. I slowed down my movements.
It doesn't hurt.
His voice was muffled, with his head turned to the side, resting on his sleeve. The flickering shadows of the lamp softened his usually cold, sharp features. Having finished treating the last wound, I was about to pull my arm back when he suddenly turned his hand over and tightly clasped my wrist. His slender fingers were surprisingly strong, and his palm felt burning hot. I stopped and looked down at him. He called my name, his voice like soft feathers brushing against my heart. In the blink of an eye, he suddenly pulled hard with his arm. Caught off guard, I fell forward into his embrace, bumping right into his broad, solid chest.
Shen Huiyi. I fancy you.
I looked at his face so close to mine, and his eyes, which were filled with intense focus. The little rabbit in my heart had probably knocked itself unconscious long ago. Suddenly, a smile broke across my face. I reached out to cradle his cheeks. As his eyes went blank with daze, I lowered my head and gently touched his lips. Xie Lanfeng's face flushed bright red. He sprang up instantly like a coiled spring.
It is clear to me now. From now on, I will protect you.
His throat bobbed as he swallowed hard, his arms tightening around my waist. Outside the window, the snow fell silently, while inside, the lamp was flickering on the verge of going out. The room was filled with the warmth of spring. At that very moment, outside of Shuangfeng town, at Deity Locking Cliff, Chu Yuchen was hiding in the corner of a cave. The long robe on his body had long since tattered into a beggar's rags. Ever since he was stripped of his title as first senior disciple, and banished to this desolate, godforsaken place to reflect on his sins, the resentment in his heart had been growing rapidly like wild weeds.
Shen Huiyi. Xie Lanfeng.
He gritted his teeth.
If it weren't for you two, how could I have ended up in this miserable state?
He wished he could skin them alive and swallow them whole. But with his spiritual meridians sealed, he couldn't even catch a single bird. Right at that moment, a faint sound of footsteps drifted in from outside the cave.
Brother Yuchen.
Liu Susu was draped in a black cloak, revealing a pale yet smiling face. Chu Yuchen's expression changed instantly. He drew his blade and pointed it at her.
Liu Susu. How do you still have the nerve to come find me? If it weren't for you, how could I have fallen to this point?
The tip of his blade was pointed right at the tip of her nose. Chu Yuchen.
What are you pretending for? Ending up in this miserable state, isn't it all because of your own greed? The Shen family estate, and the position of successor to the Jingong sect. You wanted to claim everything, and the result? Your ability couldn't match your ambition. Who else can you blame?
You.
Chu Yuchen's sore spot was hit. Believe it or not, I can kill you right now, and take your head to the sect to claim a reward. Maybe I'd even get to serve a few fewer days in confinement.
Ha 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 ha. Claim a reward. Chu Yuchen. You're still daydreaming. That old fellow of the Jinghong sect cares about reputation more than anything. You colluded with demon rebels and nearly ruined the sect's reputation. That he didn't strip you of your cultivation in public was already out of consideration for old time's sake, and you still expect to go back. What a joke.
Liu Susu pulled open her cloak, revealing the area over her heart on the left.
I am not some young lady of the Liu family in Suzhou at all. I am the biological daughter of the Dark Lord. My ancestor was the one sealed beneath Shuangfeng town by the joint efforts of the Shen and Shi families. Now my father has also been sent to his death by them. Do you really think the Shen family business you targeted earlier, or the demon-suppressing music score, is actually anything significant? Those are nothing but a cover used by the divine bird guardians to maintain the formation and hide the truth. It is just the tip of the iceberg.
A wild, frantic spark burned in Liu Susu's eyes.
Beneath Shuangfeng town lies the complete soul of the ancient dark demon lord and the most crucial dark magic power. Shen Huiyi is the descendant of the divine bird guardian, and Xie Lanfeng is the descendant of the divine dragon guardian. The bloodlines and keepsakes of their families are the keys to breaking open the magic boundary.
Chu Yuchen's breathing suddenly became heavy. He quietly lowered his long blade. Ruling the three realms, these four words eroded what little was left of his brain.
You. Go on.
Liu Susu knew. The big fish had taken the bait.
Unlocking this array requires 3 treasures. The Shen family's demon-suppressing score, recorded on it, is the incantation for the divine bird lineage to activate the array. The divine bird spirit stone worn by Shen Huiyi. That is the proof of the divine bird's magic power. Xie Lanfeng's true dragon pearl. He is the divine dragon guardian. The dragon pearl is the key to the divine dragon's magic power, and also the crucial element to unlock a portion of the divine dragon array. I know the complete method to unlock the array, because that is the secret passed down through generations of my family. Chu Yuchen. As long as you lend a hand, and help me eliminate Shen Huiyi and Xie Lanfeng to avenge my father's blood, I will help you unlock the array and obtain the ultimate magic power within. When that time comes, let alone a single Jingong sect, the entire world will have to kneel before you.
Beside the immortal locking cliff, the wild wind howled. The immense benefit broke through the very last shred of hesitation.
Deal. Magnificent. I won't pursue Liu Susu's past misdeeds anymore. As long as you can help me get the magic power, I will help you get revenge. We are partners.
Chu Yuchen sheathed his long saber and reached out to grip Liu Susu's arm tightly.
We must ensure Shen Huiyi and Xie Lanfeng die without a grave.
Deal, Brother Yuchen. It is a promise between us. 6 months from now, at the Shuangfeng Town's Soul-Soothing Grand Temple Fair, on the day of the ritual, the vital energy of heaven and earth will connect, which happens to be the exact moment when the array is at its weakest.
A demon disciple appeared at the entrance of the cave.
Young Master Chu and Miss Liu, all 12 evil sects of the cultivation world, have agreed. They are going to join us. They are just waiting for the day of the temple fair and will follow your orders.
Xie Lanfeng had mostly recovered and went back to dealing with the family's messy affairs. Life went on peacefully like this for half a year. Xie Lanfeng's subordinates found out that many demons had snuck into the town. They were openly and secretly investigating the Shen family's old residence, as well as the location of the Dragon Master stage. What makes me angriest is that in the middle of last night, someone actually sneaked to the immortal energy crack of the back mountain barrier. While they were sneakily scouting the area, I caught them on the spot. Before I could interrogate them, they took poison and died. They are all suicide squads. Xie Lanfeng threw the letter on the table.
Chu Yuchen escaped from the immortal locking cliff and colluded with Liu Susu. The various evil sects of the cultivation world have gathered about 500 to 600 people on the day of the temple fair. They will definitely strike with all their might.
I was chewing on a specially prepared duck leg. Hearing this, I licked the grease off my lips. Let them come. It saves me the trouble of hunting them down one by one. I didn't get enough of a fight in the cave last time. This time, I can wipe them all out at once. Xie Lanfeng walked up to me. He reached his hand out and gently patted my head.
I figured you'd be fearless.
I glanced sideways at him. From the tone of your voice, you are already prepared.
Yes. I have already notified the Alliance leader. 300 elite experts have already dispersed to guard the passes around the town. Old Carpenter Chen led his men beneath the great stage to set up the Grand Demon sealing formation. As long as that gang dares to make trouble by the stage, I guarantee they won't be able to escape even if they had wings. The neighbors in the town, most of them have also been sent away to visit relatives. As for the rest, they are all hiding in a few large courtyards protected by arrays.
I curled my lip upon hearing this and slammed the duck bone onto the table. So you've got everything sorted out. Then why are you talking all this nonsense to me?
I wanted you to know that no matter what happens, I'll be here. There is one more thing I've kept from you for quite a long time. Huiyi. I am not some young master from a big city at all. I am the youngest son of the current alliance leader of the martial world, the head of the dragon clan of the 4 seas, and the successor of the dragon clan, who have guarded the dragon and lion arts for generations.
I blinked my eyes and remained silent.
The dragon clan and the phoenix clan have been close allies since ancient times. My ancestors and your ancestors formed a blood covenant, guarding the array beneath Shuangfeng Town generation after generation.
He stood up, hesitating before speaking.
The reason I ran here 3 years ago wasn't to carve wood. It was because I calculated that the array had weakened, and that the old monsters of the dark sect would make a comeback. I wanted to come and protect the Shen family, to protect you.
I punched him jokingly. And here I thought it was some shocking secret. I saw through your background long ago. What kind of young master can casually order around helpers from the Immortal Alliance? He seemed relieved, pulling me into his arms. As I pressed against him, I grabbed another piece of duck meat to chew on. In consideration of you doing it day in and day out, buying the first bowl of mutton noodles for me, I won't hold it against you for keeping this secret from me, just not holding it against me. He leaned down and kissed my temple. Then I must punish you for the rest of this life. You must buy the first bowl of noodles for me and make wooden zithers for me.
I will make wooden zithers for you for the rest of my life.
After chewing the last bite of meat, I wiped my hands and put away my playful expression. By the way, Liu Susu is the daughter of the Demon Lord. Her ultimate plan is probably not just seeking revenge. Xie Lanfeng's gaze turned cold.
We absolutely cannot let them find the formation.
I clenched my fists, and a thread of bright red divine fire emerged from my fingers. Relax. They won't be able to open it. How dare they covet this place and dare to touch my man? I stretched my arms and laughed wildly. In the distance, the sound of the musical ensemble drifted over, mingled with the laughter of children. It was lively. Truly lively. On the day of the Soul Requiem Festival, many people from various sects of the cultivation world also arrived. I queued for over half an hour. My legs are so sore from standing, but I finally managed to buy the signature first pot beef noodles from the shop owner. I finally grabbed it. I got 2 portions of meat and the chili oil you love so much. Let's quickly find a seat, otherwise the noodles will get soggy. I smiled happily at Xie Lanfeng. We walked toward the seats. Xie Lanfeng took the noodles with a smile. I buried my head and ate the noodles in large mouthfuls.
Slow down. No one is competing with you.
Before the words had even faded, the originally bustling market fell deathly silent for a moment. Chu Yuchen led several hundred evil heretics and charged in, holding demonic blades and immortal swords. They tightly surrounded the lion dance stage. The townspeople instantly fell into a panic, running around in a panic. Fortunately, the disciples of the immortal sect had already hidden nearby beforehand, secretly protecting the townspeople and guiding them to safety. Chu Yuchen stood upon the lion dance stage and shouted,
Fellow neighbors and fellow cultivators of the immortal sects, the Shen Manor has been secretly harboring dark magic. Their ancestral demon suppressing grimoire is actually a soul-summoning evil tune. The double phoenix, Requiem, is an incantation to summon demons. For generations, they have colluded with the ancient dark archdemon to bring ruin to the entire world. Today, I, Chu Yuchen, will champion justice and eradicate this evil. I shall capture Shen Huiyi and hand her over to the cultivation world for judgment.
With that, he leapt down from the lion dance stage and walked right up to me.
Shen Huiyi, did you honestly think I ever cared about you? You useless, good-for-nothing fool. If I weren't after your family's fortune and the demon-suppressing grimoire, I wouldn't have even deigned to look at you. Today, both you and your wretched Shen Manor are finished.
Having said his piece, he kicked over my mutton noodles. The porcelain bowl shattered all over the ground, and the scalding broth splattered onto my long skirt. I stared at the broken shards on the ground, and the smile instantly vanished from my face. I couldn't hold back anymore. I had feigned being weak and sickly for so many years. But today, the act was over. Chu Yuchen, you absolute scumbag. It is one thing to come after me, but how dare you kick over my mutton noodles? Today, I am going to beat you to a pulp. Chu Yuchen stared at me in silence for a moment, then burst into arrogant laughter.
What is the matter? Scared out of your mind? Weren't you always so good at acting fragile and weak? So now you finally know fear.
I whipped my head up, letting out a cold snort. In all my years, I, Shen Huiyi, have never even known the meaning of the word fear. Chu Yuchen, you're asking for death. I took a deep, massive breath, unleashing a whirlwind of heaven, shattering fists with a roaring whoosh. My fists were wrapped in bright yellow divine fire, as they slammed squarely into Chu Yuchen's chest, sending him flying instantly. He crashed hard against the protective array of the twin phoenix temple, immediately shattering half of the barrier of light. He spat out a massive mouthful of fresh blood. Following that, I grabbed the red cloth from the lion dance on a whim, and used it like a whip. The cult lackeys who had followed him here were whipped so hard they cried out for their parents. Just moments ago, I was a sickly young lady who would fall at a gust of wind. The next moment, I had turned into a fierce woman who could crush a cultivation master with a single blow. Everyone in Twin Phoenix Town was completely dumbfounded. I cracked my wrists and stepped heavily on his chest. Is there water in your brain? I, Shen Huiyi, am the orthodox successor of the divine bird. My ancestors swore brotherhood with the white ape immortal of the 9 heavens. Our ancestral divine art is the heaven-shattering fist. Did you really think my Shen family could do nothing but hold wooden zithers and play soft melodies for generations? I pressed down harder with my foot. He immediately grimaced in excruciating pain. Furthermore, you wanted to plot against our family's secret manuals and assets, yet you didn't even realize our ancestral foundation is a manual of fist techniques, not a zither score at all. And yet you dared to lead a bunch of useless trash to rob our business. I only acted weak and delicate, because I couldn't be bothered to settle scores with insignificants like you. Fighting and killing all day long is so exhausting. It is much better to go eat noodles. Did you really think I was a glass vase that would shatter at the slightest touch? I leaned down close to his pale face. Most importantly, Chu Yuchen, it would have been fine if you had just provoked me, but today you actually dared to kick over my mutton noodles. I ground my foot down again. Aren't you a mortal young lady without any spiritual roots? This is absolutely impossible. He sprawled on the ground, his face filled with a face full of sheer disbelief. I turned my head and saw Xie Lanfeng right at the front of the crowd. He was still carrying the freshly bought meat floss and roast duck, his face completely filled with unconcealed joy and praise.
The noodles are spilled. Eat the meat first. Once you're full, you'll have the strength to tear this place down.
I took the roast duck and took a big bite of the meat. All right, I'll do as you say. Only when I'm full can I properly send this bunch to their graves. The duck leg was crispy skinned and tender, with grease dripping down the corner of my mouth.
All of you, stop.
Liu Susu led her people to surround us, holding a blood-stained blade in her hand. She hurriedly ran over to Chu Yuchen and reached out to pull him up. Unable to budge the unconscious Chu Yuchen, she had no choice but to give up.
Shen Huiyi, don't you get cocky. Brother Yuchen never fancied you at all. His heart belongs entirely to me.
I chewed the duck meat in my mouth, nearly laughing out loud.
Young Master Xie, I know you've been deceived by Shen Huiyi. She is just a martial arts practicing shrew who doesn't suit you at all. As long as you follow me, I can help you seize the throne of the Martial Arts Alliance chief and help you get everything you desire.
Xie Lanfeng looked utterly speechless.
Liu Susu, have you lost your mind? You're about to lose your life. Yet you're still dreaming such beautiful dreams.
Chu Yuchen used you as a pawn, and Xie Lanfeng won't even spare you a glance. Yet you're still trying to play both sides. Don't you find it absurd? Hearing this, Liu Susu laughed maniacally. Absurd?
You are the ones who are absurd.
Without stopping her laughter, she suddenly reached out and tore open her own red dress, revealing the black slanted patterns on the side of her neck.
That is right. I am indeed the biological daughter of the Dark Lord, whom your Shen mansion suppressed years ago. My family was imprisoned beneath Shuangfeng by your divine bird clan. I seduced Xie Lanfeng just to steal the key to opening the Dragon Clan's seal. All for this very day. I will break the magic circle and bring my family back into the light. I will make your entire Shuangfeng town be buried with my family.
Everyone stared at her. Liu Susu's face was filled with disgust.
Chu Yuchen, from beginning to end, you were nothing but a useless pawn to me, but I didn't expect you to be this incompetent.
She suddenly smiled at me in a terrifying way.
Shen Huiyi, the soul summoning tablet that can break the magic circle, has been in my hands all along. Today I will make you, your Shen mansion, and this Shuangfeng town all be blown to pieces, to join my father in death.
With a flick of my finger, the divine fire shears shot out like a falling star, piercing straight through Liu Susu's wrist with dead accuracy. Liu Susu screamed in pain, and the soul-summoning tablet slipped from her hand. I let out a scoffing laugh. Liu Susu, do you really think I didn't know what you were planning today? From the very first day you entered Shuangfeng town, I could clearly hear the dark, evil energy in your melodies. Our Shen family has guarded this magic circle for generations. The stench of the dark cult is something I can smell even with my eyes closed. I played along with you for 2 years, just to see what exactly you were trying to do, and who your accomplices were. Before I could finish speaking, a figure leaped in front of me. The redwood carving knife in Xie Lanfeng's hand instantly transformed into a chilling dragon-slaying sword. The phantom of a massive guardian dragon lion loomed faintly behind him.
You wanted to steal the Dragon Tribe's opening token. I saw right through your intentions from the very start. Those harmful bugs you put in that sachet, I threw them away long ago. All of your private letters with the cult are in our hands. Your gang of accomplices was rounded up by the Immortal Association long ago. Your so-called schemes were just a trap we dug for you.
I don't believe you. Even if I must die, I will break this array.
He had gone completely mad, black mist swirling violently all over him, as he desperately tried to summon the dark, evil energy from deep underground. I grinned at Xie Lanfeng, pulled out my wooden zither, and pressed my fingers against the strings. Young Master Xie, it is our turn to make a move. Xie Lanfeng nodded, drew his treasured sword, and pointed it straight to the sky.
All right. Let the dragon and phoenix join forces and suppress this monster.
The music of the zither echoed, and a demon-suppressing melody spread across the entire field. The shadows of divine birds appeared across the sky, and their resounding, sacred cries drowned out all the chaotic noise. Right at that moment, the long sword slashed down, and the roar of a dragon soared straight into the clouds. I tossed the wooden zither aside. How insolent! How dare you cause trouble in Shuangfeng town? I threw out a punch of divine, heaven-reaching power, carrying a blazing, red, sacred flame. Get back down there. Xie Lanfeng followed with a shout.
Close the array and seal away the demons forever.
The phantoms of the dragon and phoenix merged in midair, turning into a dazzling pillar of light. The screams from underground slowly faded away, and that terrifying rift was sealed tight by the primal energy of the dragon and phoenix. Just as Liu Susu rushed into the circle of light, I lunged right in front of her. I slammed my hammer into her abdomen. Liu Susu, you plotted for over a decade, only for it all to end up as a pipe dream. With her evil meridians severed, she was completely reduced to a useless weakling.
I won't accept this.
Seeing that the dust had settled, Chu Yuchen planned to slip away quietly. He had only crawled about 20 feet before I stomped hard on his back.
Auntie Shen, spare me. I know I was wrong. Please spare me.
I let out a cold chuckle and completely destroyed all of his cultivation. Spare you? When you kicked over my mutton noodles, why didn't you think about sparing me? Only then did the disciples of the immortal sect gather around. After this battle, my true capabilities were fully revealed, and I became a living legend. No one dared to call me the town's #1 sickly beauty anymore. Instead, they all called me Shen the Sledgehammer, or Boss Shen. Even the noodle shop owner knew to give me an extra portion of meat floss. In my 19th year, the chaos in Shuangfeng town finally subsided completely. Xie Lanfeng and I left the place where we had stayed for over a decade. We began our days of wandering the martial world. During this year, we traveled to every corner of the land. I still remember that day, with the white clouds churning beneath us. As I rode on the giant bird, I said, I didn't expect the martial world to be this interesting. It is much more satisfying than pretending to be sick and weak all day in Shuangfeng town. Xie Lanfeng raised his hand to cast a spell, shielding me from most of the cold wind.
Wherever you want to run off to, I will go with you. To the ends of the earth, I will follow you.
I like the sound of that, I replied. And so, we truly traveled across famous mountains and great rivers. By the shores of the eastern sea, I used my heaven-reaching divine fist to beat an evil dragon until it cried. I even smashed its dragon head crooked. In the western desert, I held a wooden zither and played a soul-soothing, demon-subduing melody, healing a whole town tormented by dark energy. The next day, everyone gifted us 99 pounds of local roasted mutton. In the southern jungle, Xie Lanfeng carved new playbooks for a puppet show troupe that was about to die out. At that time, even the 80-year-old veteran craftsman gave him high praise. We took the skills of Shuangfeng town and scattered them all over, just like sowing seeds. Of course, we had our moments of friction too. The reason was that I found out from an ancient dragon clan ruin that the young master with the purest dragon clan bloodline could actually turn into a dragon. Oh boy. You really kept me in the dark. In my entire life, what I, Shen Huiyi, hate most is being deceived by others, especially regarding such an important matter as being able to turn into a divine beast. If I had known earlier, why would I have ridden that big bird? I could have just ridden you instead. I unilaterally declared that I was throwing a tantrum. Xie Lanfeng shook his head helplessly. He took the horse reins and walked toward Shen Huiyi. From that day on, I went by myself every day to buy the first pot of noodles, sitting miles away from him and not even giving him a single glance. Until this day, at a branch of Fengxiang Noodle House, 2 extra portions of meat and roast duck were added to my bowl. Shopkeeper. I didn't order these things. The noodle house shopkeeper was a sensible person.
Miss Shen, young Master Shi ordered this well in advance. He said you love to eat this, so he has it prepared for you every day. He even paid for a month's worth of meals. Look, he is standing right outside the door. He has been waiting for you for over half a month.
My heart stirred. I turned my head and looked through the window. Xie Lanfeng was standing outside the door, holding the meat floss I loved to eat in his hand. At this moment, all of my pretentiousness vanished into thin air. I walked over to him. Hey, come inside and eat together. His eyes lit up instantly, and he replied with a smile.
Okay.
Aside from these romantic entanglements, we also survived some deadly crises. The remnants of the dark sect refused to give up, ambushing us multiple times on our journey. Once, at Doom Cliff, they laid a deadly trap and cornered us on the edge. Xie Lanfeng was poisoned while trying to save me.
Huiyi, never mind me. Run.
He tried to push me away. I looked at him, held him tight, and with my feet on the stone steps of the cliff, I leaped straight down. When we hit the ground, I shielded him fiercely in my arms. My back slammed violently against the rocks, and I couldn't tell how many bones I broke. I was covered in cuts from the fall, but I didn't let him suffer a single scratch. To purge the poison from Xie Lanfeng's body, I stormed the cave of 10,000 demons all by myself. I fought the cave master hundreds of times, and finally secured the divine medicine. The cave master was a giant weighing over 1,000 pounds, but in the end, I dazed him with a flurry of heaven-shattering punches, until he fell to his knees, begging for mercy. When Xie Lanfeng woke up, we were inside a ruined temple. He looked at me, seeing me covered in wounds, and burst into tears on the spot.
Huiyi, I'm sorry. It is all because I was useless and got you hurt.
The dragon clan leader, usually so gentle yet ruthless, was now crying like a baby. I patted him on the back. Silly. I can take down 10 guys with 1 punch. I'll protect you from now on. And it was after this time that we never argued again. While we were wandering around the martial world, we ran into Liu Susu's maid. By then, Liu Susu had already been imprisoned in the water dungeon for many years.
Miss Shen, this is what my master wrote in the celestial prison. She told me that I must deliver it to Miss Shen.
In the letter, Liu Susu said that in the early years, there indeed was a time when she truly adored Xie Lanfeng. At the Dragon and Lion Festival that year, she saw Xie Lanfeng, and seeing how his eyes were completely filled with me, she went mad with jealousy. I stared at the letter and didn't say a word for a long time. Xie Lanfeng hugged me from behind.
It is all in the past.
I tucked the letter into my pocket and whispered, in the end, she is quite pitiful too. She spent her whole life harboring resentment, trying to snatch things she shouldn't have possessed. But in the end, she got absolutely nothing. Xie Lanfeng squeezed my hand tightly.
Everyone has their own path to walk. She chose this dead end all by herself. Let's walk our own path well.
The sun was setting, and the afterglow stretched our shadows very long. Xie Lanfeng, let's go back to Shuangfeng town. I miss old Chen. I miss our own home. Xie Lanfeng kissed my forehead. He finally revealed his dragon form and carried me on his back, flying far away in a flash. As soon as my feet touched the ground, the surroundings erupted like a clap of thunder.
Deity Shen is back. Young Master Shi is back.
Familiar, welcoming shouts, mixed with the hot steam of food, greeted us instantly. Auntie Wang at the town entrance stuffed a freshly baked flatbread into my hand, while Uncle Li insisted on shoving into Xie Lanfeng's arms. Shoved 2 jars of aged wine into Xie Lanfeng's arms. We no longer had to hide our true selves. Inside the Dragon Lion woodcarving shop, old Chen's hair had turned completely white, and his back was a bit more stooped. Seeing the 2 of us walk in, the old man's hands trembled violently as he presented the carving knives and design drafts passed down through 7 generations, right before us.
Miss Shen, Master Shi, this wood carving shop, along with this craft of 7 generations, I entrust them all to you. You are the great heroes of Shuangfeng Town and the most capable successors to this craft.
My heart warmed, and I quickly reached out to support his withered arms. Don't you worry, Master Chen. We will surely pass this craft down, safe and sound. Only then did the old man's face break into a wide grin. Turning around, we headed to Fengxiang Noodle House. The proprietor had already polished our usual table by the window until it shone.
From now on, in this spot, who would dare compete with you?
The mutton broth in the pot was bubbling merrily. This year's Shuangfeng Town's Soul-Soothing Festival was more lively than any year before. Together, we stood on the high platform, holding the wooden zither in my arms. I let the notes of the Shuangfeng Town Soul-Soothing song flow out. Beside me, Xie Lanfeng held the mallets, beating the great dragon lion drum. Below the stage, the lion dance troupe stepped to the choreography I had modified for them. The musical instruments sounded melodious, and the mountain songs echoed continuously amidst the bustling atmosphere of the entire town. At that moment, I felt that this was what truly living felt like. As the festival drew to a close, that evening, the 2 of us went to Fengxiang Noodle House again. The proprietor cooked 2 bowls for us, serving our signature first pot mutton noodles with extra meat. The broth was clear, the meat tender, sprinkled with bright green garlic sprouts. Taking a large slurp of noodles, I felt so content I almost let out a sigh of satisfaction. Halfway through the meal, Xie Lanfeng suddenly set down his chopsticks. He unexpectedly pulled a rosewood box from his pocket and dropped to one knee, with noodles still hanging from my mouth. I was completely dumbfounded. What on earth are you doing? Xie Lanfeng looked up at me, his eyes filled with nothing but tenderness.
Shen Huiyi, 4 years ago. Right here in this noodle shop. From the very first moment I saw you, you captured my heart. Over these past 4 years, you have saved me time and time again, and accompanied me to the ends of the earth. I want to spend the rest of my life sharing the first bowl of noodles with you, and carving dragon lions for you. Are you willing to partner up and spend the rest of your life with me?
He opened the box, inside of which was a small mahogany phoenix hairpin carved so exquisitely, it looked almost alive. He had infused it with his own primordial energy, turning it into a life-saving treasure capable of warding off great calamities. I looked at him, smiled, and pulled him up. All right then, your punishment is to carve wooden zithers for me for the rest of your life. Xie Lanfeng smiled as he pulled me into his arms, leaning down to kiss me. I'll listen to you for the rest of my life. The shopkeeper beamed with joy and served us an extra plate of his secret recipe duck on the house. Beside the sweet osmanthus tree, freshly roasted duck sat on the stone table. I snuggled close in Xie Lanfeng's arms, chewing on the duck meat. Xie Lanfeng, everyone in the martial arts world calls me Boss Shen. Don't you think I don't seem like a refined southern lady at all? Xie Lanfeng put down his wooden carving knife.
No matter what you're like, I love it all. When you were pretending to be weak and sickly, I loved you. And when you sent those evil demons flying with your hammer, I loved you even more. You just need to be yourself.
I tore off a piece of duck meat, squinting my eyes in pure bliss. To hell with being a weak, dutiful wife. In this life of mine, I must live it with vibrant passion. In truth, in this world, no one is born weak, nor does strength appear out of thin air. I feigned illness for 12 years, not out of cowardice, but to shoulder the responsibility of protecting my family's heritage and the peace of our small town. Liu Susu and Chu Yuchen schemed and plotted to the end, only to suffer a crushing defeat, undone by nothing but their own greed and jealousy. True confidence is never gained through pretense or plunder. When you dare to tear off the labels others place on you, bravely embrace your true self, protect those you love with your strength, and treat others with sincere warmth, you will become your own light. May we all refuse to be defined by worldly standards, remain unbound by prejudice, live passionately and openly, and always grow toward the sun.